Hey guys, Optobags here, and we're really privileged to be with Mike Weisman of the Illinois State Rifle Association. Some of you may not know, but Optobags is near Illinois, maybe above, maybe below, who knows, but we care about Illinois. Illinois was the last state to come into the fold for gun rights. It's where the battle still continues, and the Chicagoland area, the gun ban that existed for so long was overturned thanks to the work of Otis McDonald. But there continues to be a lot of contention. There continues to be politics, bureaucracy. It's the same battle, and it's just a new ground, but it's in the same place. And so the Illinois State Rifle Association, much like the National Rifle Association, continues that battle, but specifically within the state of Illinois. Funded and moved by the people of Illinois, for the people of Illinois, because of the gun rights that do exist in Illinois, given to us by the Constitution of the United States. And so, Mike, thank you so much for giving us a few minutes of your time.
Glad to be here.
Some people don't know what the Illinois Rifle Association is. How long have you guys been around?
We were founded in 1903. So we've been around a long time. And over the course of time, the mission has changed, but the original mission is still very important, and that was safety, training, and education. We started out because in the Spanish-American War, they realized that if they brought people in from the cities to put them on the front lines of our armed forces, they didn't already know how to shoot.
It used to be that every man had a rifle and could function, and if needed, be conscripted or called upon or raise his hand and serve. But that became less and less, and sadly even more today. What is Illinois Rifle Association working? I know that you're working with the current situation in Chicago for ranges. People can't get to gun ranges or gun shops in Chicago.
And that's part of the Ezell versus Chicago case, and there's all kinds of other tangential issues. The Illinois State Rifle Association has lobbyists in Springfield working to correct some of the more onerous situations that still exist, even though we have concealed carry. People can't concealed carry on mass transit. They would have to stop and sort of disembark from concealed carry and resort to rules for transport, which generally means unloaded it in a case.
People don't realize in Chicago what they've created is almost a checkerboard, where you can walk 50 feet in one direction and be okay, but 2 feet in the other, and you're breaking the law.
And again, still, there's no place in Chicago for people to legally buy firearms or ammunition or to practice on a shooting range.
And so, for some who don't know, essentially, Chicago had a ban. They had instituted it. It was long-standing, and thanks to the work of Otis McDonald and in collaboration with the Illinois State Rifle Association, we were able to abolish that. And we said, yes, you can have firearms. But then there came in this regulatory body that said, to do it, we want to see certain things. But then the city continues to make it difficult to achieve those requirements.
The city does not want the ordinary man or woman in the street to be armed. And yes, they have put in obstacles, starting with the Chicago firearms permit and the permitting process, which doesn't exist any longer, but is what led up to the original case of Ezell versus Chicago.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about that case?
In Ezell versus Chicago, every person who wanted to have a Chicago firearms permit was required to have training. And part of that training was required to have live fire exercise and qualification.
But there are no ranges.
So every applicant for a Chicago firearms permit would have had to at some point leave the city in order to comply with the terms of those regulations.
So to clarify, the criteria for being able to practice the right of owning a firearm was set down to have certain amount of training, but the restriction requires that I spend additional time and money and travel outside of the regulatory body's area to achieve those requirements.
That is correct.
That is, I would say, that it seems unreasonable or undue requirements. That's beyond what would be reasonable.
And 3 federal judges agreed with you.
And that would be the end of the story. But they continue to appeal it. They continue to try to slow the process.
And there are then zoning rules put into place that restrict where a civilian shooting range could be, and and various other rules.
How old you would have to be to even enter.
Such to the fact that at this point, still, this many years later, there are no civilian firing ranges.
6 years later?
I believe it's 5 years.
5 years later?
Yeah. But since then, we've got concealed carry.
Wonderful.
And one of the requirements, and we do have this most stringent training in the nation for concealed carry.
It's twice as long as anywhere else.
And part of the training is live fire exercise
At a range.
At a range, and again, there are no civilian shooting ranges in Chicago. So once again, people are stuck with having to travel outside of Chicago in order to
Now,
accomplish some
for
goal.
factual purpose, there is a range located relatively near, but it is limited to police personnel only. It is a law enforcement only.
There are many shooting ranges in Chicago for city and federal law enforcement officers.
So essentially, a segregated ability that is not limited, that is limited to them, but not okay for the people. The common man who pays the taxes for them, who pays for those facilities, and we can't use them.
That also plays into effect that the common man is paying for having the city try to keep him from exercising his rights.
And I tell you, you've heard my rant on government and oppressive bodies. Believe it's called the Constitution.
So the other reason we're here today is we're also talking about this urban initiative that we've been trying to roll out.
Yeah, so you're trying to get, because it's not just saying, oh, people can't have guns. It's very much certain people, minorities, people in urban areas, who are the most affected by this restrictive system.
Ever since 1982, in 1982, Mayor Jane Burns cemented the de facto ban into place that first of all required registration of handguns, and she cemented it into a ban by saying, from this point forward, we're not going to allow any new handgun registrations. So anyone who had one,
how they do that, right?
anyone who had one at that point could continue to re-register it every year,
At a
cost, and upon a failure to re-register it by the proper time, lost that registration, and there were no new registrations. So that's a de facto ban.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we saw was, for a period of over 30 years, people are raised, couple of generations of people grew up knowing a gun was something you couldn't have in Chicago. It was illegal for law-abiding people to own.
The association, and we've talked about that earlier, the Association of Chicago to firearms is either what's seen in a movie or what the news tells them. And that just leads to an ignorance, and 30 years later, a generation of people who don't have a culture for firearms.
So we have several small groups that meet in the city in a couple of locations, and we discuss some of the issues, and we're working on a way to present to the public at large in small pieces, to make small advances, talking to groups of people, letting them know how the situation has changed, reaffirming that they have the right to keep and bear arms for their family, and if you don't know, here is what the rules are now.
So it's educating. It's giving people power through the knowledge that they aren't even aware they could have.
And before we can do that, we have to come up with a successful campaign to reach them, let them know outright that, hey, the Illinois State Rifle Association and your neighbors are talking about this issue and want to talk about it with you.
If we have some viewers in the Chicagoland area or in the Illinois area that want to be involved, how can they connect with Illinois Rifle Association and with this urban initiative?
Well, for this urban initiative, they can go to our website at yesyoucan.isra.org.
And we're going to put the links to everything under here. And if they wanted to connect and join the Illinois State Rifle Association, what's your website?
The website is isra.org, and specifically just to find out about joining, you can go to join.isra.org. group.isra.org.
If we have some very tech-savvy people, are you on the social media?
We are. We have a Facebook page for our Illinois State Rifle Association, and the Facebook name is ISRA Group.
And we're going to link that to our Facebook. So if you
and we're on Twitter at ISRA.
Very good. Let me ask you this question. Okay, how long have you personally been part of the organization?
I joined the ISRA within a year of becoming a gun owner in 1995.
And why did you join?
I joined initially because they had a rifle range that I could join. But shortly thereafter, I became aware of all the issues surrounding gun ownership and the efforts of anti-gun politicians to try to continue to erode away at our rights. And I started volunteering at a couple of different functions, and then met some people at ISRA leadership, and it felt like it was a natural fit to come on board, and so
it's always nice when you meet people who think and believe and understand you and want to have a dialogue.
So the fight for gun rights has been a part of what I do for the past 16 years.
Well, thank you for that commitment to the battle. Definitely, guys, if you're in that area, if these issues affect you, if you have an interest, if you just want to show support, follow those links, get involved. And again, I'm not an expert in anything. I only spread my views and opinions, but here's an expert telling you, get involved. This fight is real. Thanks for coming out, Mike. Appreciate it. And you have a good one. Click like, subscribe, follow the links, and support gun rights where you can. Thanks, guys.